Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris. You can find me on Twitter at DanHarris80. It is Friday, so we are going to be breaking down each and every game that's going to be played this weekend. But first, as we always do, we are going to welcome in Dr. David Chao. You can find him on Twitter at ProFootballDoc. You can go to ProFootballDoc.com. You can go to Outkick.com to find all his great work. Dr. Chao, thank you, as always, for fitting us into your busy schedule on a Friday morning.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for accommodating between surgery cases, etc.
I know. You've got a busy schedule, but that's why I try to clear my whole Friday morning just to make sure we can fit you in. Whenever you give me that text and say, let's go, I'm ready to go. Let's jump into it right now with Chris Godwin. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. He's missed a couple of games. He has returned to practice on a limited basis, but, it might be known by the time people are listening to this when the final injury report comes out. But what do you think Godwin's chances are of suiting up this week, and if not this week, next week?
I think next week is pretty good. This week is still iffy. And even if he suits up, you're the fantasy expert, and you guys, you got to look at other options, right? I don't expect him to suit up and all of a sudden get 10 targets, 8 catches, and a touchdown, So I think he's going to be a little limited with his hamstring. Although I am more optimistic on his partner in crime, Mike Evans, who seems to be a cyborg playing through things, did better than I expected off that mild high ankle sprain, and now is 1 week further removed. So I'm rather optimistic on Mike Evans.
Yeah, he played through it last week. And again, they do have the quote-unquote mini bye, given that they played on a Thursday night. So they have a little extra time to get ready. But yeah, Evans always looks like he's on the verge of going out of the game. And then the next thing you know, he's back in. What about DJ Chark? He left late last week with an ankle injury. He has not practiced yet, at least coming into today. I was watching that game pretty closely. I didn't even really see it. I couldn't tell when anything really happened, but obviously he's missed practice both days already this week. So what do you think on Chark?
Well, you're right not to see it. And if you did see it, you'd be seeing things, because he went out with about 7 minutes to go in the game, if I remember correctly. And it wasn't shown on TV. It was out of the frame. He wasn't targeted on the play. And there was a little bit of contact with the corner. So I went back and looked at the All-22 on the coach's film at Game Pass. And those views are so distanced. I didn't see anything specific. But that's actually good news, because if this were something more serious, I think I would. And so he's the big unknown of the week. I'm not adding a ton here. Certainly you would say 2 straight do not practices is a do not play, kind of situation, but it could hold out a little bit of hope still. I don't think he's going on IR. I don't think this is a long-term thing. And he still has a chance to get going this week. I know I'm not adding anything specific, but I don't really have much to go on, even looking at the All-22 video.
I think that's good enough, though. The fact that, we're not missing anything. It wasn't like there's something readily apparent that you could draw conclusions from. For now, as you're going to hear later when we talk about with Yates, I'm not ranking Chark to play this week, and I'm assuming that he's going to be out, but you'll probably know more by the time you listen to this. Let's go to the Browns here, who have a couple of interesting scenarios going on. You've got Beckham Jr., who's been sent home with an illness, but there's no COVID-19 positive test yet, so we don't really know what's going on there. I don't know if you can talk about that. We also have Baker Mayfield, who's dealing with rib and chest injuries, and even Jarvis Landry's a little banged up. So what can we take away here from anybody on the Browns?
Sure, and I'll give you some good news on Odell Beckham Jr. I have him in fantasy as well, so hopefully it's not just hopeful thinking. But I talked about it on the podcast this week, the Pro Football Doc podcast, and brought up the issue of illnesses. There's no question this year there's a lot more illnesses that are popping up. And people do get nervous that this is COVID. This is not COVID illness. There's a separate list for COVID. But this is COVID related indirectly in this way. In the past, when someone had a runny nose or a low-grade fever or something, they would typically be still allowed in the facility and allowed to practice. And sometimes those people would be listed full practice with nothing. And sometimes they would be limited practice, but they would be around. This year, if you have any symptoms that might be a precursor to COVID, you are sent home. And when you are sent home, here comes the DNP, and you have to put a reason, so it becomes illness. Adrian Peterson had the same thing. If you look at injury reports, you'll see this much more prevalent this year than in the past. But I don't know that I would put a lot of stock into it. A midweek illness where you're sent home. Sent home kind of implies they're really sick. In this case, in the pandemic, not really true. Any symptoms in you're sent home out of safety and precaution for your teammates and the facility itself. So I don't make a lot of the illness stuff this year, and I think you could, book that and not get so afraid when you see that pop up. As far as Baker Mayfield is concerned, look, I just go by video, so I don't know. Yes, it's been reported at ribs and maybe chest. I still worry about an AC joint type thing and maybe an SC joint type sprain. The way that he went down, Baker said he rolled, so it voided his shoulder some. And I don't doubt him that he's got some rib issues, but I still think there's a shoulder component, and here's why. On my weekly serious hit with Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller, I asked Jim Miller, former NFL quarterback, hey, if you have ribs, do you let your arm hang down at your side? He goes, no, you do that with an AC. I've had both. And I said, and he added, to give him credit, said, I also saw him shaking his arm. If you have a rib, that's the last thing you want to do is shake your arm and jostle things. But an AC joint, you're sort of like moving around to see what you got there. So even with that said, this is Baker Mayfield. They're playing the Steelers, a big game. He's going to play. Will he take a pregame injection to help him out? Maybe, but he's going to play. And, I'm not worried about that.
All right. How about Jimmy Garoppolo? He did come back last week, a little bit of a surprise. Did not look great. Not sure if it was just rust or if the ankle injury was bothering him, but he is practicing this week. So do you think that he's not only going to play, but play up to his potential in this game?
Yes and yes. I think that last week was a tiny bit rushed, and it could have been more or as much about the rust and limited practice after missing a couple weeks versus the ankle. And yes, the back foot ankle, the mild high ankle, he could have had some issues pushing off, which might have affected the accuracy. But I think he was taken out in the second half, not to make the ankle worse, but also to protect him, because it turned out to be a blowout game for the Dolphins. But he fully practiced this week. I expect the Jimmy G of normal, of old, to be back in this game here.
All right, that's good for all 49ers pass catchers and the offense in general. How about Davante Adams? Certainly looks like he's going to play. He's had the bye week. Is this, you've got guys who come back from these injuries, and sometimes they're kind of eased into it. Do you expect Davante Adams to be a full go in this one?
A full go, 100%. If you have him in your team and you don't play him, you're being completely silly. I think he's going to have full go, full targets, full everything. Part of it is he could have rushed back before the bye, but the whole point was to wait, right? And now I think he really is 100% or very, very close to it. So I expect a big, quote, normal outing for Davante Adams.
Two Broncos who are expected to come back and play this weekend are Drew Lock and Noah Fant. Do you expect both of them to be full go, or is there some trepidation about throwing them, do you think, into starting lineups given their injuries?
First of all, there are three Broncos coming back this week if you throw in Phillip Lindsay from his turf toe. And who knows what the split is going to be there with Melvin Gordon and his issue there. But I think Drew Lock, I would be more or as concerned about his rust than about his shoulder, being the young quarterback that he is, but he should be close. And Noah Fant should be pretty good to go too. And both these, the game being pushed back due to COVID against the Patriots, I think Drew Lock would have played last week. Noah Fant, not so much. So they get Noah Fant back with the pushback and a healthier Drew Lock. But obviously, Cam Newton is back, and I think Stephon Gilmore will be too for the Patriots. Those two definitely would not have played if the game went off last week.
Yep, definitely good news for anybody rostering Newton and the Patriots defense. Let's finish up here with a guy who I'm assuming perhaps by the time people listen to this will have already been ruled out. But let's look at his probably more long-term outlook. That's Dalvin Cook. They have a bye next week, so I assume that the Vikings are going to be careful with him. But do you expect him to miss this week? And if so, do you expect him to return after the bye week?
Yeah, when it happened Monday night, I believe it was, it was an adductor groin strain. Yes, it's on the same side that he had the 2019 hamstring. Yes, on the same side as the 2018 ACL. But this is not injury-prone, and it's not related to those. And I expected him to miss time. The question was how much. I take it as good news that this is not a 3-week IR deal. But I don't know why anyone would be surprised. Mike Zimmer does the typical coach speak. Dalvin Cook's not playing this week. Period. End of discussion. They have the bye next week. based on the injury itself in the video, he was going to miss some time. Great news is 1 week plus the bye week and then back. And that's kind of what he's tracking towards right now. But if you have Dalvin Cook or you're thinking about him, you shouldn't. You need to make alternate plans.
Excellent. All right. That basically lines up with exactly what I was thinking, which I think fantasy managers, of course, we're talking about Alexander Mattison this week. He'll be a great start against the Falcons. All right, Dr. Chao, as always, thank you for fitting us in between surgeries. Remind everyone where they can find more of you and your great work.
Twitter at ProFootballDoc, but ProFootballDoc.com. It's free. And you know, we put up some video within a minute of Dak Prescott's injury that broke it down and that said what he would need in the emergency surgery and the fact that he'll be fine for week 1, 2021. And so there's some good video there where he even slams his ankle. His first reaction after the ankle fracture dislocation is he doesn't call for help. He actually slams the ankle on the turf to try and straighten it, sees it fall back out, and then calls for help. So that's why he was the beast of the week on the Pro Football Doc podcast there. And thanks to some of your listeners, I'm sure it's Fantasy Pros Power, that you guys all crashed the website momentarily when Dak was injured. And so it's free, so sign up and take a look. No credit cards, no spamming, nothing like that. And we appreciate you.
And again, I will reiterate on a personal level that the second I see an injury that happens in a football game, I immediately go to your Twitter profile because I know that if you're around, you're going to be looking at the video and giving a very quick review. And in my experience, it's almost always accurate just based off the video. So everybody should follow you over at Pro Football Doc. We will be coming up in a minute with Yates, and we will talk about each matchup for week 6 of the NFL season. I'll talk to you in 2 seconds. All right, now let's bring in Kyle Yates for Dan and Kyle in the morning. You can find Kyle on Twitter, of course, at KyleYNFL. I can't believe I called you Kyle. It feels weird. I always call you Yates. What's up, Kyle Yates? How are you?
Now going to be a full name thing every single time.
That's fine.
No, I'm good, man. It's been a good morning. I got my weekly article published literally right before we hit record here, and my family, my son and my wife, we were dancing to the Hamilton soundtrack in the kitchen this morning. So, yeah, I'm in a good mood, man.
Never gets old. Can't be a bad day when you start it with the Hamilton soundtrack. We got a bunch of news to get to before we get through every game. Let's start with the good news, which is that the Vikings and the Falcons have apparently been cleared to play. No additional positive test here for the Falcons. So it looks like that game is on. So we will talk about how high we have every player in that game, including Alexander Mattison, which is perfect segue because it's essentially a Hamilton character, as you and I often joke about. But unfortunately, we got news this morning. Again, this is taping at 9:30 Eastern time, so we do not have all the details, but that the Colts are dealing with some apparently presumptive positive tests, multiple ones, and they've shut down their facility for now. Yates, I don't think we know anything about this game and whether it's got a chance to play, whether it's going to be canceled, whether it's going to be moved to Tuesday. The Colts are playing the Bengals this week. So I don't really think there's anything we can really offer fantasy managers at this moment. I'm sure they'll know more by the time they listen to it. So I don't really think there's much to be addressed, and we should just talk about the game as usual. Are you good with that? Yeah,
I'm good with that. I thought you were going to stop your sentence after we don't know anything. I just thought that was going to be the end of your sentence. No, just looking at this game, I think, we'll move forward. If anything, it will just be moved from, this week as far as Sunday to potentially another Tuesday night football game.
Well, it's possible they'll cancel it. They'll find another day to buy. But you should know, Yates, that whenever I can say something in 5 words, but I'm able to say it in 40, I will choose the latter approach. Let's very briefly, again, it's not going to matter for this week, which is what we really do on the show, but we would be remiss if we did not mention the Le'Veon Bell news. Bell decides to sign with the Chiefs, one of the 3 expected places that he could land. Now, he cannot play in the game this week. That is off the table because of the NFL's COVID-19 testing protocols. You've got to test negative or something for 5 or 6 straight days. It won't be done by game time. So for this week, you don't need to worry about it when we talk about that game. However, in the future, let's just put a little bit of a pin in. Let's put an exact note on where we have these guys going forward. How much does it hurt Edwards-Helaire's value, and where do you think Bell's going to rank for you rest of season going forward?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts here because I feel really gross about where I've ranked Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, looking at it, this just plummets his value. And he's been a safe, low-end RB1 just based off the fact that he's getting carries in this dynamic offense and he's been involved in the receiving game. But yet, he hasn't been able to score from the goal line. Like, only one rushing touchdown on the season. That was the long breakaway play in week 1 against the Texans. So, I think Le'Veon Bell comes onto the field as the goal line back because Clyde Edwards-Helaire just doesn't have the size to be able to punch it in at the goal line. So this definitely hurts. I think he's still going to be fine. I still think he's going to be an RB2. I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Again, I want to hear your thoughts because I don't feel great about this, but I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 19. I have Le'Veon Bell at 22.
Okay.
Rest of the season.
So I think what we are doing right now is, for the most part, speculating because there's no way to know. There's absolutely no way to know how this is going to unfold coming in. But you do bring up a good point, is Edwards-Helaire has, quote-unquote, struggled at the goal line, but he just hasn't punched in. Right now, my rest of season rankings have Edwards-Helaire at 15 and Le'Veon Bell at 32. Now, that's not final. That was just what we try to do immediately. We have sort of a thing where when news like this breaks, Yates and I and Tags go and we update our rest of season rankings immediately because we want to make sure that fantasy managers have the best advice that we can give as soon as they possibly can. So I'm going to dig into it. I can't say with 100% certainty that that's where he's going to land. And again, it's going to partially depend on where certain guys move up or down. It hurts Edwards-Helaire's value. There's no doubt about it. We both agree, of course, that he's still the back to roster if you have to roster one. But Bell certainly could carve out a bigger role. The reason why I haven't moved him up crazy is because, look, things can change and Bell can get rejuvenated and he's still very talented. And maybe he was just, bored or hated the Jets or anything that anybody else who goes to the Jets feels. But he did not look good when he was playing. He did not look good last week. I don't care about the fact that he rushed 14 times or 13 times for 60 yards. Like a better running back could have gained a lot more. Now he may be rejuvenated and the offense fits him perfectly, but I'm just Edwards-Helaire has been fine. He hasn't been great. So I do still see him getting plenty of carries, plenty of touches for now, but he is in the RB2 range. And for me, for right now, I would have Bell just, he's outside the RB2 range, but I do think that this is something where if I had Bell, I'm not dealing him because I want to see where it goes. You know what I mean? I would like to see whether or not he does get the goal line touches, whether he does factor in more in the passing game. It could be a huge boon to his value. But right now, I have him in RB3 range. I don't expect him to come in and take all the goal line touches or split carries or anything like that. I think he's going to be more of a change of pace back. Remember, they needed an upgrade. I don't think Bell went to the place where he thought he would get the most work. I think that probably would have been maybe Miami or something like that. I think he wants to win a championship at this point. He's getting paid anyway. The Jets have guaranteed his salary, so it doesn't really matter. So I do think he factors in, but he's more like RB3 range for me. Now, again, he's not going to play this week. So when we get to that game, let's remember that. All right. So let's get into all the games. You know the deal. We're going to go through game by game here. First, let me remind you about our monster giveaway that runs for another roughly 2 weeks through Halloween night at 11:59 p.m. The signed black and gold Aaron Jones helmet, a $200 gift card to Pristine Auction, a $200 gift card to Porter Road Butcher, a package of fantasy football goods for your league winner and your last place loser from Trophy Smack, and a 1-month subscription to Fubo TV. You can enter this contest in one of 3 ways. Follow us on Twitter @FantasyPros. Follow us on Instagram @FantasyPros. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/FantasyPros. Then go to fantasypros.com/contest. Make sure you verify that you have done one of those things, and that's it. You can do all 3 of those things and have 3 entries into our contest. It's really easy. Again, Twitter @FantasyPros. Instagram @FantasyPros, youtube.com/FantasyPros. You can subscribe. That is it. All right, before we get into the games, Yates Accuracy Challenge. As always, you know what that is by now if you've listened to the show. FantasyPros.com/challenge. Free contest where you pick 10 over-under fantasy points per week. It's sponsored by BetMGM. The grand prize is a 3-day, 2-night stay at an MGM resort in Las Vegas, including round-trip airfare. Let's get into it. Aaron Rodgers against the Bucs, 19.2 fantasy points. Yates over-under.
I'm going to go over there.
I am too. Ben Roethlisberger against Cleveland, 18.6 fantasy points.
Good line. I am actually going to go over with this one as well.
I am as well. 2 for 2. Aaron Jones at the Bucks, 15.3 fantasy points.
This one's gonna be super close. I have Aaron Jones just above it though, so I'm gonna take the over again.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be close. He's at 15.3. I'm at 15.5. So we're all both over, exactly. Raheem Mostert, Rams, 13.3 fantasy points.
Over.
I'm over as well. We're 4 for 4 on the over right now. Kareem Hunt against Pittsburgh, 16.6 fantasy points.
Over again. I have Kareem Hunt as my third overall back this week.
Woo, that is bold. All right, well, we'll get into that. I have him under here. I think he's coming under this number. Not by much, but I do have projected for roughly half a point under. Allen Robinson against Carolina, 13.5 fantasy points.
He's
over.
seeing too many targets. I feel crazy. I never take the over this many times, but I'm going to take the over again.
I had the same exact feeling on this. I mean, I have the under on Hunt, but I do have the over on Robinson as well. How about Hollywood Brown, 11.9 fantasy points against Philadelphia?
That one I'll take the under on.
I will take the over on that one. So we are basically, whatever, we got 6 out of 7 on the over here. Darius Slayton against Washington, 11.6 fantasy points.
Oh, man. It's a fine matchup. I'll take the over, but I'm not expecting anything drastically over that.
I also have the barely over, as I will call it. Justin Jefferson against Atlanta, 11.2 fantasy points.
Over.
Over as well. And Zach Ertz against Baltimore,
Under.
9.1 fantasy points. Zach Ertz, 1 fantasy point. Under. No, I actually have the over on this one. I think that not by much. Basically, that's a good line for him at 9.1. I do think that, I think they're getting a little healthier at wide receiver, and I do think that Baltimore, under the radar, not that great against tight end. So I do think he can do some stuff. All right, again, it's Friday morning, so we don't have the full practice reports yet. We will try to give some caveats, but let's get into the game by game. As always, we will start with the Thursday night game. And to recap it, I beat my son in Avengers Monopoly by trading my daughter for the Loki-Odin combo and putting headquarters on them. So there's a Thursday night game this week. Of course, no football game.
I was like, where are you going with this? What are you doing?
You know I've got some really obnoxious dad joke waiting to go at every single moment. Let's get into this weekend's games. Texans visiting the Titans. Let's talk about the Texans. I mean, I feel like you're not excited to start David Johnson, but you're starting David Johnson. Is that fair?
Yeah. I think that he's, again, looking at the options that you have at the running back position, I think that you have to start him up as a low-end RB2.
Yeah, I have him 18th. Where do you have him out of curiosity in your rankings?
That's a good question. I have David Johnson at 23, actually.
Okay, David Johnson.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at my rest of season rankings. I didn't change that.
Yates.
Hold on.
What a rookie mistake. It's not like we do this podcast every week.
I know. I have him at 14.
Oh, okay, good. So you're safe there. So I don't even have to ask you A or B. You're starting Will Fuller, I assume. You're good with him at this point. Every week, wide receiver 2-ish?
Low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. That's just kind of the way that you need to be looking at him every single week. Comes with a huge upside, but yet it comes with an extremely low floor every single week. He could just disappear. So it's kind of one of those things that you plug him into your lineup and you just deal with the range of outcomes.
Will Fuller or Hollywood Brown?
I mean, they're both in that same category. They're clones of each other. I think I'll go with Will Fuller this week.
Yeah, that's why I choose them, because they're the same person. I have Will Fuller 25th and Hollywood Brown 26th. So it sounds like we're viewing them the same way. What about Brandin Cooks here? Are you willing to trust him after that monstrous game last week?
Yeah, I'm willing to go back. I'm willing to go back to Brandin Cooks as a wide receiver 3. I like the matchup here for him, and I think that again, weird range of outcomes that we just don't know what it's going to look like. But the first week without Bill O'Brien, we saw Brandin Cooks be a focal point of this offense. I think he can get back to being a consistent contributor for you.
It is an exploitable secondary. I'm not willing to trust him quite that much. I've got him right now 43rd. My guess is he's going to end up a couple of spots higher as depending on who's in and who's out. But would you start Brandin Cooks or, if he's healthy, Laviska Shenault?
I would start Laviska Shenault because I don't think DJ Chark plays this week.
That is, I'm not ranking Chark either. I'm assuming he doesn't play, which stinks. I love DJ Chark. I wish he could just stay on the field because he's great. It also hurts, but we'll get to that game. That also hurts Gardner Minshew. And Deshaun Watson, you're fine with starting in this one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Titans, you're obviously starting A.J. Brown, assuming he plays. He's missed practice, but I assume that was just rest, because he's sort of dealing with the knee and the Tuesday game. You're starting Derrick Henry. Of course, you're starting best tight end ever, Jonnu Smith. Are you streaming Ryan Tannehill this week?
Yeah, if you need to. Looking at what he did last week, I don't think we can sit him. And this is a fine matchup for opposing quarterbacks. So I am fine rolling in Ryan Tannehill as a low-end quarterback one.
Ryan Tannehill or Gardner Minshew?
It would be Gardner Minshew, but with DJ Chark missing, I'm probably going to bump him down my rankings, so Ryan Tannehill would move up.
Yep, that's what I have too. I have Tannehill 11th. I have Minshew right now 12th, and that's under the assumption that DJ Chark doesn't play. Again, I'm not basically saying like, well, we saw what happened in Miami, therefore, we know. I think that was more of a scratch for DJ Chark, and I think they weren't really prepared for it.
Yeah.
So it does hurt Minshew, which I'm ranking him with the assumption that Chark doesn't play. Hopefully he does. But for now, we're assuming that he doesn't. Let's go to the Broncos visiting the Patriots. The Broncos have held in check running backs pretty well, both on the ground and through the air, but no Jarrell Casey. Not sure if that really hurts them. Are you starting Damian Harris this week?
As nothing more than an RB3. I mean, he's one of those guys, like, he just needs to be viewed as a bye-week fill-in. No scoring upside now with Cam Newton coming back into the lineup here, so I just don't... He's going to have to break away a long touchdown run in order to score, because we know that Newton's the goal line back. So I just think, he's someone that you can roll in as a bye-week fill-in, but I'm not expecting anything crazy.
Yeah, hold on. Can I tell you something funny, Yates? Hold on. Hey, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry about that. I think my internet kind of went crazy a little bit. It was funny, Yates, because I was just looking at it, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And I realized that the thing that I had chastised you for, which was looking at your rest of season rankings, I had accidentally switched over there as well. So I have Harris 29th on the week. So yeah, I agree. He's an okay RB3, but I agree with Cam Newton back. You assume that Newton is going to steal the goal line work. Speaking of Cam Newton, he's just right back into your QB1 range. No hesitation with him.
100%. I think that they're going to run him consistently in this game. I mean, the Patriots are 10-point favorites in this game, which is insane. So,
yeah.
But I think it can happen. I'm not criticizing the line there. It's just insane that is a huge line. So I just say, I'm saying Cam Newton, absolutely plug him back in as a mid-range quarterback one with ridiculous upside if he finds the end zone as a rusher.
Yeah, and let's go back, by the way, to the Brandin Cooks thing, because I had just very briefly on the last game, I had said wherever I had him. I actually have him 37th for my weekly rankings. I was also chastising Yates.
Rookie mistake.
I am the worst. I am the worst human of all the humans. I apologize for that. Are you starting any wide receiver in this game actually, you know what? Forget it. Forget about just the Patriots. Are you starting any wide receiver in this game?
Yeah. Julian Edelman is a wide receiver 3. Jerry Jeudy is a wide receiver 3. Tim Patrick is a flex play. Outside of that, N'Keal Harry he's outside my top 50 wide receivers in the week. Not excited about starting him. But Julian Edelman, Jerry Jeudy, and Tim Patrick, assuming KJ Hamler's out.
Yeah, I'm starting Julian Edelman as a wide receiver 3. I have him 31st. Right now, Jeudy is 38th, which is like a flex play, and you're dealing with bye weeks right now, so that probably puts him into somebody who's starting. Patrick is 48th. I don't really know whether or not we can assume that Stephon Gilmore, who, again, that's a big deal. Sounds like he's going to play right now. He's been activated off the COVID-19 list. That certainly hurts the passing game. I'm not really looking to start any of them. I mean, I'd start Edelman. That's fine. I have Jeudy in several leagues. I will almost certainly be starting him, but I'm not quite as excited about Tim Patrick as I had hoped to be. Let's go to the Broncos here. If Melvin Gordon plays, which right now it sounds like he's going to, are you starting him?
I'm fine starting him as a low-end RB2. He's probably in that same territory as far as how we're viewing David Johnson. So I think you can roll him out. Philip Lindsay being back concerns me. We talked about this on the Start Sit podcast. Philip Lindsay being back, I could easily see this being a 50-50 split again. And so if that's the case, then Gordon loses some of his appeal. But again, it's talking about bye weeks and the fact that if you have Melvin Gordon, you most likely have to play him.
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. If you have Melvin Gordon, you're probably playing him, but you're not all that jazzed about it. Now, if Gordon somehow is out for this game or suspended, you're firing up Philip Lindsay, no hesitations, right?
Yeah, Philip Lindsay as a top 24 running back.
And it looks like Noah Fant's going to be back. Is he sneaking to your top 12?
I mean, based on the position, yeah. I mean, I'm not expecting crazy things with him coming off of this injury, but yet at the same time, when we're talking about, if you're looking at playing Dalton Schultz or Noah Fant, give me Noah Fant.
Yeah, Noah Fant is 12th for me. So he sneaks in. Not crazy about it, but yeah, he's definitely going to sneak in. Falcons visiting the Vikings, which is a game that is now on. I'm assuming no Julio Jones here. You'll probably know by the time you listen to this podcast. Are you starting or sitting Matt Ryan?
I'm sitting him if I can. He's at 15 right now in my rankings, and that's sandwiched between Tom Brady and Andy Dalton. So, yep. I mean, Andy Dalton might be the safer play. Matt Ryan has a higher ceiling in this game, but yet without Julio Jones and the way he's looked the past 3 weeks, we can't trust him.
Yeah, I have Dalton ahead of Matt Ryan for sure. I have Ryan 17th right now, under the assumption that Julio Jones doesn't play. There's no way you can trust Ryan at this point, given how he's looked the past few weeks. You're starting Todd Gurley. Of course, you're starting Calvin Ridley. Are you starting anyone else on the Falcons?
You might be forced into starting Hayden Hurst, but I think that you should just be expecting high-end Titan 2 numbers. I'm not crazy about him this week, but outside, you can't go back to Russell Gage or Olamide Zaccheaus. You just can't do it.
Nope.
So it's Calvin Ridley and Hayden Hurst and Todd Gurley.
Yeah, and Hurst for me falls outside of the starting range. I have him 16th right now, so I think you can probably find better options right now, which pains me. And I think there will be a game where Hayden Hurst really tears it up, but I don't know if you're going to know when that game starts. Would you rather start, though, in this game, Hayden Hurst or the guy we talked about in the waiver wire show, Irv Smith Jr.?
Dan, I was literally just about to ask you the exact same thing. I was looking at my rankings. I was like, ooh, Irv Smith. I will play Hayden Hurst slightly above Irv Smith, if that makes sense. Like, Irv Smith, I just want to wait one more week before I confidently roll him out into my lineup, but I think that the arrow is pointing up, and I think that he can go off in this game, but it could also be something where he goes back to his usage that he's had throughout the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I have. I have Hurst 16th, and I have Irv Smith 19th. So, again, both guys who, as low as that sounds, those are guys who you could start, because a lot of the guys ahead of them might have been picked up by fantasy managers, because once you get past the top 6 or 7, tight end's a wasteland, as it usually is, and so a lot of guys may be rostering 2 tight ends. So you might be forced into starting one of those guys, and even though they're ranked 16th and 19th, that's more in the range of, I don't really want to do it, but I'd be okay with doing it because the whole position is terrible. How high do you have Alexander Mattison this week?
I have Alexander Mattison at 4.
Yeah, that's too low. I'm at 3. So get on board. Yeah, this is just the spot. I mean, assuming Dalvin Cook is out, which I think is a fair assumption.
Yeah, there's no way he's playing in this game.
Correct. There's no way. Are you streaming Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, absolutely. Tags and I were talking about him. Tags had him at 6 when we were doing the podcast on Wednesday. I have Kirk Cousins at 8. So I think you can absolutely plug him in this matchup. Very, very high over-under. I think points are going to go up on the board in this one. I really hope so, because the last couple weeks have not been, these potential shootouts have not been as promising as we've thought, but yet Kirk Cousins in this game, I think you can absolutely roll him in as a streamer.
Yeah, I'm as 11th, so still a streamer, of course, but not quite as excited as you guys are. You're, of course, starting Adam Thielen as I have Adam Thielen 2.
I have him at 1.
Woo! I like it. Okay. And how about Jefferson here? Are you willing to start him? Kind of quiet last week.
He was quiet last week, but I think that this week is, again, against Atlanta. Like, you start your wide receivers against Atlanta. So if I am projecting Kirk Cousins to be all the way up at 8 and have a great game, then I'm expecting Justin Jefferson to bounce back. So I have Jefferson right now. It's very, very aggressive. He might come down a little bit by the time that we get to Sunday and lineups lock, but I have him at 13 right now, Dan.
Wow, 13 is high, but I have him at 18. So that's, in the same universe. I agree. When I first did my projections, I was like, am I really going to do this right now? And you guys know, we joke about it all the time. Like, I do projections, and then after the projections are done, sometimes I look at players and I adjust. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Like when I adjusted Brandin Cooks down last week after my initial projections were like, no, this is a good game. I was like, I can't do this. But for right now, Jefferson sits at 18. So he is somebody who I would look to start. So Yates, I have right now, as I'm showing the camera, a water bottle. People tease me sometimes when I drink out of it. It has the times of the day on it, so I can know how much I'm supposed to be drinking, so I can stick with it. It's an egregious amount of water for me. And I also have something on it that says set goals and demolish them, because I really wanted to pump myself up with my water bottle. That's how I roll. I do not demolish my goals, Yates, not when it comes to water drinking. I never drink enough water. And when that happens, especially since I've been working at home, I just don't feel as productive. Like my brain is foggy. Like I feel like I can't think straight, which is tough because you and I are poring over stats all day long. But my wife runs nonstop, as you know, and she said that one of her running group, members of her running group turned her on to something called Hydrant. And I was like, well, that's fine. But as she knows, I'm not a runner. There's a finite amount of exercise that one couple can do. And to balance out the fact that she runs nonstop, I do nothing. I do no physical activity. It works for me. But she was like, no, you don't need to exercise or be a runner or anything like that. It just helps you hydrate faster. So I tried it. And you know this because we work together. But I have just been crushing life now. At this moment, I'm not force feeding myself like what I feel like is gallons and gallons of water. Hydrant is like an electrolyte powder that you can just mix into your water. It keeps you hydrated quickly, but also for a longer amount of time. Developed by Oxford scientists, it contains 4 essential electrolytes that your body needs: sodium, potassium, magnesium, and zinc. It's made with real fruit juice powder, by the way, and a variety of flavors like the new keto-friendly lemonade and pink grapefruit with no added sugar and only 2 grams of carbs. It is football season, okay? You know that I go to bed at like 1 or 2 a.m. because I'm messaging you at that time. Kids wake me up at like 7. I pop in the lemonade packet into my water bottle in the morning. I'm ready to go. They also have this new immunity line that they've rolled out. It's available in either lemon ginger or hot apple cider. Over 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, B6, B12, and D. And that's really important when you live in the Northeast, like I do, where we've got like 2 more weeks of sunlight, and then it's just going to be darkness as the early winter sets in. So getting vitamin D somewhere else is really important. Just a ton of essential vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes with ginger and zinc. It's total immune support. It starts at $1 a packet. That's it for a 30-day supply. And you can save even more with a monthly subscription. Right now, our listeners can save 25% off their first order. Go to drinkhydrant.com/fantasypros. Enter promo code fantasypros at checkout. That's drinkhydrant.com/fantasypros. Enter fantasypros at checkout for 25% off your first order. Hydrant, where water meets wellness. All right, let's get into Washington visiting the Giants. Usual breakdown for Washington: start Terry McLaurin, start Antonio Gibson, and start nobody else. Is that right?
Correct. One player that I'm going to tweet this out on Sunday, just a sneak preview. Stash Antonio Gandy-Golden if you can. So we're seeing Gandy-Golden, his snaps increase week after week. And I think that, I mean, he was one of like my receivers that I was willing to stand on the table for in this rookie draft class. Coming out of Liberty, literally watching him, I was like, this is AJ Green. I'm watching AJ Green. Now he's very raw, again, coming out of Liberty University, a D3 school. So I don't think that his adjustment to the NFL level has gone, as quick. It's gone as, as expected. He's making a significant jump, but he's continuing to get on the field and he's starting to see significant snaps. So I think moving forward, Gandy-Golden could be a fantasy relevant option, and just stash him if you can. Otherwise, just leave him on your waiver wire, continue to monitor. Again, I know that with bye weeks and everything like that, most people can't afford to stash him, but I'm just saying, keep an eye on him.
But you're not starting him at all this week.
Correct. No, don't put him in your starting lineup.
If you're in an 80-person league, you might want to start him. I do have him ranked 100th this week. I just checked my ranking. That's my cutoff, by the way, for ranking wide receivers. Right. It's usually 100 wide receivers. He legitimately is my 100th wide receiver this week. But yes, I'm just teasing you. Yes, of course, it's a stash candidate. And I do like that, by the way. That's something that fantasy managers should be thinking about if they can afford it, given the bye weeks right now, is stashing players in advance who might not have value this week, but who have the potential to have value in the week after, and you can get ahead of the waiver wire. For the Giants, are you good now with Devonta Freeman? Are we like firing him up as a borderline RB2 given the bye weeks?
Yeah, I think so, because we saw him get it done on the ground last week. Again, looking explosive and found the end zone. But then he wasn't super involved in the receiving game, which is what gives him a safe floor. So I don't think he's going to have as much room to run in this one against the Washington defensive front. But yet he can bounce back with a significant, significant amount of work in the receiving game. So I have Devonta Freeman way higher than I thought I was going to, and way higher than it feels comfortable. But again, bye weeks and a lot of injuries, I have Devonta Freeman at 22 right now.
I'm 20th, so I'm with you. Yeah. Devonta Freeman or Kenyon Drake?
I'll go Freeman.
Freeman or Ronald Jones against Green Bay?
I'm going to go with Ronald Jones there, but he obviously comes with the concern that if Leonard Fournette is active in this game, and Leonard Fournette could just simply take over at any point.
But that is how I have it as well. I have Ronald Jones slightly higher than Devonta Freeman, 1 spot higher than Kenyon Drake. Darius Slayton, start or sit?
You can start him, again, as a wide receiver 3. With Daniel Jones not getting anything done through the air, essentially. I mean, Slayton went off last week because of the matchup against the Cowboys. Now, the Washington secondary isn't a cakewalk, but yet it's not one of the stoutest units in the NFL, one of the top tiers. So I think it's just kind of an average matchup for Darius Slayton. I think you can plug him in, but again, I'm not expecting anything more than wide receiver 3 production.
Yeah, I've got him 27th, so I'm probably a tiny bit higher than you are, is my guess, wherever you have him ranked. But I would fire him up. I'd feel okay about it. Not, again, certainly I felt better about him last week, but I'd be willing to roll with him this week. How about Evan Ingram here? Are you willing to roll the dice? I have Ingram 10th, so he's in my starting lineup.
I think he has to be in your starting lineup just based off of the landscape. I have Ingram at 9, and that is like the grossest sentence that has come out of my mouth this entire season. I almost vomited saying that. So like
I don't know. You've had a lot of gross sentences.
Thank
this
you.
Season, man. You're welcome.
With Evan Ingram, his depth of target is ridiculously low. It's terrible. They're misusing him in this offense. I'm not excited about it, but he always has the potential to find the end zone. So I guess you go with him.
Yep. No, I agree. Would you rather start Evan Ingram or Robert Tonyan?
Robert Tonyan.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, Bengals visiting the Colts, assuming this game plays. How do you feel about Tyler Boyd this week?
I have him as a high-end wide receiver 3 this week. Tough matchup, but I think that he can still Joe Burrow's going to bounce back. That was a ridiculous performance last week. Just terrible. It's never going to be that bad again. This is a stout pass defense, but yet at the same time, I think that Burrow is going to have a fine day. So Tyler Boyd, I like him a little bit more than I did last week.
Tyler Boyd or Darius Slayton?
I'll go Tyler Boyd there.
Yep, I have Boyd one spot ahead. Boyd 26, Slayton 27. How about T. Higgins? Are you willing to roll him out now? I mean, he's getting the targets.
Yeah, I'll roll him out as a low-end wide receiver 3 flex play.
Yeah, man. We're right there. I'm 35th, so we're right there. I mean, you're starting Joe Mixon each and every week, right? You're not.
100%.
Good. And are you, I mean, it's not a great matchup, so Burrow's, I mean, he's outside the streaming conversation for you, right?
Correct. Burrow is at 18.
Yes, that is. No, he's at 19 for me. Sorry, disagree. For the Colts, I mean, we've had some discussions mostly with tags about how Jonathan Taylor looks, doesn't look, what he's doing, what he's not doing. But in this matchup against the Bengals, top 5 option for you?
I don't have him all the way up there. ECR has him at like 3, I think, last time I checked.
Yeah, I'm 5.
I've got him at 7.
5th. Okay. All right. I mean, they've been bad against the run. I think Geno Atkins is probably going to play here, which will help. But again, you're not going to rely on Phillip Rivers at this point to do anything.
Correct.
Are you starting anyone else on the Colts other than Jonathan Taylor?
Not if I can afford to. I'm going to sit T.Y. Hilton just because, again, I expect this to be a Jonathan Taylor game. I expect, of course, Jordan Wilkins is dealing with his own injury, so we don't know if he's going to play in this game. If that doesn't happen, then I'll boost Jonathan Taylor up. But then Nyheim Hines should be a factor too. So I just think they're going to keep the ball on the ground as much as they can. It doesn't bode well for T.Y. Hilton or Zach Pascal or even Trey Burton.
Yeah, you don't want to start anybody in the passing game. I still have T.Y. Hilton ranked as like a borderline wide receiver 3. So if you're in a situation where you have to, like, I have leagues because I liked Hilton coming in where I have to start him. But again, you saw his best game of the season last week, and it wasn't great. And that was because they were chasing points, which I don't expect in this game. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but with Rivers under center, it's just not good. But Taylor, rock solid, locked in, guaranteed start. Let's go to the Ravens visiting the Eagles. Of course, you were starting Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, and we said you're good to go with Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, again, as a wide receiver 3 every single week.
Yeah, I could pretend like I was looking at my weekly rankings even when we were at that part of it, but I wasn't. I was looking at my rest of season rankings, which I legitimately chastise you for. I'm sorry. YouTube comment me away. I'm the worst person. I actually have Brown 17th this week, so I think I had him like 25th or something like that. I'm 17th right now, so I'm good with starting him for sure. Are you starting any Baltimore running back, which we ask every single week, and every single week I feel like your answer is, I don't really want to.
It's going to be the same thing again. I mean,
okay, that's how I feel too.
I'm forced into starting Mark Ingram in a couple of places just because of bye weeks and other options. I don't feel great about it, but again,
where do you have him ranked this week?
Mark Ingram is at, let me flip over to running backs. Mark Ingram is at, it's still loading, 25 for me. 25.
Where is he?
25.
Oh, all right. So I'm 34. Like I'm like really avoiding it.
I mean,
if I can
it all
avoid
depends. Like the names behind him right now are Devin Singletary, which I don't want to start because I think Zach Moss plays. Nyheim Hines, I don't want to start Nyheim Hines. Damian Harris, not crazy about Damian Harris. Jamal Williams, and then Chase Edmonds. Like those are the next, and Frank Gore. Like I'm not. So it's like in comparison of the other options, that's what pushes him up to RB25.
I do have him above Frank Gore, so that is good. But yeah, in half PPR, man, I'm rolling with Hines. I'm rolling with Harris. I'm rolling with Singletary for sure. Even with Zach Moss, I don't want to start Mark Ingram. I just don't. But again, he's 34th for me, so it's like a reluctant, like, okay, I have Ingram in a league or two, and I have to start him because that's the landscape, right? I'm gonna have a league where every single, especially if the Colts Bengals gets postponed.
Oh my word!
I had 3 very solid running backs. I have none, so you're gonna be dealing with that. But yeah, if you're in a pinch, go ahead and do it. For the Eagles, we don't know right now. Let's say if Alshon Jeffery and Deshaun Jackson are out, which I don't expect, but if they're out, are you starting any Eagles wide receiver in this matchup?
Greg Ward, but as a like low-end wide receiver 3 flex play in full PPR leagues. I'm staying away from Travis Fulgham in this matchup if Jeffery and Jackson sit. And then of course, if they play, then of course you're not playing Travis Fulgham. But man, it's not going to be a good day for the Eagles offense.
I'm starting Fulgham if Jeffrey and Jackson are out. I know it's a terrible matchup, but and by starting him, I mean like borderline wide receiver 3, maybe flex play at this point, because I just think, despite the matchup, given the connection he's shown with Wentz, given the lack of other options, given the targets that he's suddenly been seeing and producing with, I'd be willing to roll him out there if I had to. Now, I do expect both Alshon Jeffery and Deshaun Jackson to play. You may know otherwise. And if they do play, Yates, are you starting either Alshon Jeffery or Deshaun Jackson?
I'll start Alshon Jeffery. I'm staying away from Deshaun Jackson. I'm starting Alshon Jeffery as a low-end wide receiver 3.
I think that's right. I think that's where I'll have him. I haven't ranked him yet because I want, for now, right. I'm just going under the assumption until I see it. But I do think that that's probably right. He'll be a borderline wide receiver 3. And then going forward, I'm going to have him ranked as an every week starter for sure. You're still starting Miles Sanders, of course, despite the tough matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, again, we're talking about Mark Ingram at 25 in my rankings. And we better be talking about Miles Sanders as a start this week.
Yes. And start, sit, or throw away forever Zach Ertz.
Sit him. I just don't want to go near
Where
that.
do you have him ranked? I got Zach Ertz is becoming the poster boy for discussion on this podcast, but where do you have him ranked?
Yeah, Zach Ertz has turned into the T.Y. Hilton. He's at 15 in my rankings
Let's hope this turns out better for me than the T.Y. Hilton debate did. So he's 15th for you? Okay, yeah. So you're starting, let me give you a couple guys, Zach Ertz or Eric Ebron? Eric Ebron.
I have Ebron at 14.
Zach Ertz or Dalton Schultz?
I have Dalton Schultz at 11.
Zach Ertz or Jimmy Graham?
I have Jimmy Graham at 7.
There it is. We are not starting Zach Ertz if you are Yates. I still am. I have him 8th. But again, everybody who's after that, I don't feel comfortable with anybody going on right now. I do have Jimmy Graham as a borderline starter as well, so not that crazy. But I would still start Zach Ertz. I think eventually this is going to happen. And unless I see an injury, as much as I'm moving down, I'd start Robert Tonyan over him. I'd start Mike Gesicki over him. I'd start TJ Hawkinson over him. But I would still roll him out there if I had him. Sorry for everybody who is mad about that. Lions visiting the Jaguars. Are you starting either Adrian Peterson or DeAndre Swift?
I have AP at 24 this week.
Man, you are just like so horrified by your own rankings. That's what I love.
It's disgusting, but
that's a crazy ranking because I have him 26th. So that is, I agree. That's what you have to do this week. I mean, that's where it is. Adrian Peterson or, well, you've already said it. How about Darrell Henderson?
I'll go Darrell Henderson.
Adrian Peterson or Kenyon Drake?
I'll go Kenyon Drake there, but I have Drake at 22. I have Peterson at 24.
Okay. And how about DeAndre Swift?
I'm not going near him.
I'm a little more comfortable with him. And I'm not, again, the usual caveat of this week is horrific when you're looking at these running backs who are outside this RB2 range. But right now, Swift and my early projections have come out at 28. I kind of have this feeling that they're going to use the bye week to get him more involved and to understand what he can do. And again, the people behind him, we've talked about these options. Like, I don't want to start Mark Ingram. I would take my chances on DeAndre Swift right now in half PPR formats, given how involved he is in the passing game, over somebody like Mark Ingram. So where does Swift fall in your actual rankings?
I'm not going near him.
Can't find him.
I mean, yeah, he's at 49 right now, Dan.
Okay. All right. I want you to, and I will as well, since this is you don't find it often where we're 21 spots apart on a guy. Let's both make a deal. We will both take a close look at DeAndre Swift and maybe talk it out in our Slack channel and then see where we end up. You are starting Kenny Golladay. Are you willing to roll the dice on Marvin Jones in a great matchup?
Willing? No. I think that it was Adam Pfeiffer on the Start Sit show that said that, we know that a 6 reception for 80 yards and 3 touchdown game is coming from Marvin Jones.
Wasn't it week 6 last year?
Might have been.
After he started off horrendously.
Yeah, we know that it's coming at some point. So, I mean, I would not feel comfortable recommending him as a flex play. It would just be as a desperation, like I am losing by a ton, or projected to lose by a ton, and I just need that like jolt, that could go off. Then in this matchup, it could be Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones for me is my 43rd ranked wide receiver on the week. And he is somebody who I'm rostering him in one spot. Can't believe I somehow didn't drop him. And I'm hoping that my hand is forced and I have to start him. I'm hoping that there are enough, Chark isn't going to play or something like that. And I'm like, well, I don't have anybody else. I have to throw Marvin Jones in there.
Wait, where did you say that you had him?
43rd.
I have him exactly at 43rd as well.
He's going to finish 43rd this week, everybody. Congratulations. You're right. He's somebody, so you can start him if you absolutely have to as a flex play. I don't want to. I'm just hoping that my hand is forced, and I have to because the game that you finally are like, I'm done with this. I'm out in this matchup. He's just going to explode.
Yep.
But 43rd essentially. So I'm not looking to start him. And again, T.J. Hawkinson against a team that just is abysmal against tight ends. How high do you have him?
I'm at 5.
Yes, that's excellent. I also have him at 5. Are you streaming Matthew Stafford in this matchup?
Yeah, absolutely. I have Stafford at. I had him at 5 at one point. I have him at 5. I have Matthew Stafford at QB5 on the week.
All right, I'm at 9th, but there's not a big difference in between there. So,
Correct.
Yeah, we're both firing right up. Jaguars, let's assume Chark is out here. If Chark plays, you start him, right? I mean...
Yeah, in this matchup, completely.
Let's assume he's out. So what are you doing with Laviska Shenault or Keelan Cole?
I like both of them. As far as my projections right now, I have not projected DJ Chark to play. So Keelan Cole is currently at 24 in my rankings, and Laviska Shenault is at 25.
Wow, that's high, Yates. I like it.
It's the matchup. I mean, it's the matchup against Detroit. And if, the Jaguars, you okay over there?
Sorry.
If the Jaguars are throwing the ball 40 times, I'm just going to keep going. If the Jaguars are at throwing the ball 45 times a game still, and I expect this is a very, very high over-under. And if they are throwing the ball as much as they are, then it creates an incredible opportunity for these wide receivers. So Chris Conley's not going to be a thing. D.D. Westbrook is going to come in probably if DJ Chark sits, but he's not getting targets. So Tyler Eifert isn't involved. James Robinson should be fine. I have James Robinson pretty high in my rankings this week. So, but again, Keelan Cole and Laviska Shenault should see enough work to be to return, low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 value.
Yeah, right now I don't have either one of them quite as high as you did, but I do have them as both startable wide receivers. They're both more in the wide receiver 3 range, but I could see pushing Shenault, who, again, he's been dealing with his own sort of hamstring
Right, he did return to practice.
He did yesterday?
Yes, I believe so.
Wonderful. Okay. So he should play and he should be fine then. But I could see by the time all things are said and done, he pushes wide receiver 2 territory. But Cole is almost certainly going to stay in wide receiver 3 territory for me. Are you willing to roll with Minshew? I mentioned it earlier. He, of course, had that his one really bad game against Miami without DJ Chark. Are you willing to roll with him as a streamer if DJ Chark is out?
Yeah, I'm still rolling with. I'll probably put him. He's at 9 right now in my rankings, but I think I'm going to drop him a little bit to probably around 13. So just behind Ryan Fitzpatrick and Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I'm 13th right now as well, under the assumption that Chark doesn't play. Certainly a guy who you can get away with starting, but not somebody who I'm running out there to start. Bears visiting the Panthers, smash spot for David Montgomery, right?
Completely.
Yep. I agree. I mean, if you have him, you're starting him, but Montgomery or Todd Gurley against Minnesota?
I have Montgomery at 10. I have Gurley at 13.
Okay, you're good to go then with him. Big game for Allen Robinson coming, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, with the target totals that he's seeing, absolutely.
And how about Jimmy Graham? We talked about him. You said 7th for Jimmy Graham?
I have him at 7. Doesn't feel great, but yet he's seeing the targets in the the part of the field that matters for tight end production. So if you're going to bet on anyone right now, bet on Jimmy Graham finding the end zone.
Yeah, I have him 13th right now, but my guess is when all is said and done, he's going to sneak into the top 12, which is crazy that this is the world we live in right now with Graham. But he does get the red zone targets. And again, there's very little difference in my projected fantasy point totals for 13 through 9 at this point. Anybody else in the Bears, or you want to move to the Panthers?
No, let's move on.
Mike Davis, an obvious start here, right?
Yeah, I still have him within my top 10. I'm not expecting the ceiling that he's had the past couple of weeks. In this matchup, the Bears can be run on, but I think that it's a phenomenal defense. So I'm just not expecting the ceiling. I have Davis at 9 this week. So I still think that he's someone that you start, you roll in, but again, I'm not expecting a huge ceiling.
And has Robbie Anderson earned your trust regardless of the matchup like in this one?
Oh, yeah, completely. I have Robbie Anderson still as a top 10 wide receiver this week based on my projections.
Okay. I mean, I'm 15th, so not crazy. But yeah, I mean, this is where he is right now. He is good to go, guaranteed, locked in as no worse than a wide receiver 2. How about DJ Moore, trusting him after that big game against the Falcons last week?
I'm not. Well, I still think you can play him. It's all about expectations. People, ACR had him up as like the wide receiver 17 above Robbie Anderson earlier on this week, and I was just like, no way.
Nope.
DJ Moore, only 5 targets last week. Yes, he broke away for the long touchdown. Yes, he can always do that. He has the talent to do it. But yet he's not seeing enough targets in this offense to warrant high-end wide receiver 2 rankings. So I have DJ Moore at 30 right now. I'm not excited about starting him. But again, I still think you can plug him into your lineup.
Yeah, I'm a little higher than that. I am right now 21, so I guess significantly higher. But I agree that last game, I'm not overly encouraged by that because it really did look like the Falcons just kind of mailed it in on that like long touchdown run that he had, right? It's like they were just he was like jogging. So yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's go to the Browns visiting the Steelers. A lot of weird issues right now with the Browns that maybe fantasy managers will have more clarity on by the time they listen to this. Legitimately, just saw a tweet as I was saying that from Tom Pelissero that Odell Beckham Jr. remains out of the building with per COVID protocol. Correct. So it's possible he's going to miss the game. Let's assume that he doesn't. Let's assume that he plays for now. He's dealing with an illness. If he plays, are you starting him?
Yeah, I have him at 12 right now.
Yeah, okay. I have him at 19, not as excited about, although the Steelers, they do give up a ton of fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, so it's not exactly a matchup to fade. How about Jarvis Landry? He is dealing with hip injuries. He's been out of practice, but he played through it last week. And don't forget, by the way, this should factor into how you feel about the wide receivers. Baker Mayfield is dealing with the rib injuries, and he's going to play.
Mama didn't raise no wuss.
He does not sound 100%. Like, I don't like thoughts about, like, I'm fine, I'm going to tough it out, or something like, he's trending in the right direction. I don't want to hear that. I want to be like, you're good to go. So my guess is he's going to be a little limited. They get after the quarterback. He takes a couple of hits. That's going to affect him. But are you starting Jarvis Landry assuming that he plays?
Yeah, I have him as a wide receiver 3 this week.
Yeah, no, so do I. And Kareem Hunt, where do you have him?
I said I have him at 3. Fire him up.
Man.
Too many touches. Too many touches to ignore.
It's funny because I have him 7th, which isn't a huge difference, but it sounds crazy when it's 3. But yeah, you're not, if you have Kareem Hunt, you're starting him without question. How about Austin Hooper suddenly getting targets, 17 targets over the last 2 weeks? Are you willing to roll with him in your lineup?
Yeah, if we're talking about guys like Dalton Schultz, like give me Austin Hooper over him. I mean, Austin Hooper's at 10 right now. Again, I talked about Evan Ingram at 9. I should probably move Austin Hooper above Evan Ingram.
Yeah, right now my early projection, and again, this is partially that I'm a little worried about the passing game. So I have, we're all in the same range on all these guys, except that I have them a little lower than you do because I'm a little worried that Mayfield's injury is going to affect them. Right now I have Hooper at 15. If I gave him half a fantasy point more in my projections, he would be at 11. So it's really right in there. I do think he's a guy you can get away with starting. For the Steelers, starter sit Big Ben.
You start him. Start him as a low-end QB1 in this matchup.
Yep, I agree with that. James Conner, you're good with at this point?
Yep.
Okay, and let's talk about the wide receivers. It sounds like they're all going to play. So which one of them or all of them are you willing to start?
Yeah, I'm still willing to start all of them. Looking at Deontay Johnson, if he does indeed come back for this one, I have him projected right now at wide receiver 19. I have Juju at 22, and then I have Claypool at 41. So I think Claypool is a flex play this week. I know that a lot of people are going to be rushing out to play him after what he did last week. I just think that was a byproduct of Deontay Johnson missing. So, I think that expectations need to be managed here. Claypool can obviously find the end zone, and that can boost it, which is what makes him an appealing flex play. But I don't think that he sees the necessary targets to finish higher than that.
How about Eric Ebron here?
Ebron, again, I think I said I have him at 14, so I think you can roll him out above guys like Zach Ertz. But again, he's just kind of in this streaming consideration.
Okay, so you're good with Claypool regardless, you said, of assuming Deontay Johnson plays. You're good still? You think he's going to get enough work there?
As a flex play.
Okay. I think that is pretty fair. I have him right now ranked exactly there. Like a pretty high-end flex play because I do think, again, to quote Tags, the genie's out of the bottle a little bit with Claypool, even if Deontay Johnson plays. The game everybody's waiting for, Jets versus Dolphins. We talked about how the Jets' run defense is okay, but they do give up a ton of touchdowns to running backs. So, I mean, I assume you're good to go with Myles Gaskin right now,
Yeah,
right?
we talked about Myles Gaskin as all three of us, Adam, Tags, and I on the Start-Sit show, had him as our start of the week. Because looking at Myles Gaskin, he is now getting the goal line opportunity here. He's getting the touches. There was a huge concern about, Le'Veon Bell coming to Miami and just decimating Myles Gaskin's fantasy value. That didn't happen, so continue to plug him into your lineup, especially this week.
And you're streaming Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
You have no qualms about starting Devontae Parker, I assume, against this vaunted Jets pass defense.
Okay. Please start Devontae Parker.
What about Preston Williams after, had only 5 targets, but over 100 yards in the touchdown last week? Are you willing to roll with him?
I have him as a flex play. I actually have him one spot below Chase Claypool. So I think you can roll him into your lineup and deal with the potential, range of outcomes.
Yeah. Again, another guy who I'm not going to start based on my rankings. He's 45th right now. But he is a guy who I'm sort of hoping that my hand gets forced if I have him and I have to play him because I could see a big game here. I do think that there is certainly the possibility that he just needed the time to recover from the ACL. And now that he's done that, he's going to be a kind of reliable wide receiver 3 going forward. I don't have him ranked that way yet because I want to see it again. But I wouldn't run away from starting him if I absolutely had to and if I was desperate this week. How about Mike Gesicki?
Gesicki I have up there right in that same territory with Jimmy Graham and Austin Hooper, and so I think you absolutely can plug in Mike Gesicki.
Mike Gesicki is 6th in my initial rankings. I think it's going to be a big day for him, as it should be for anybody who faces the Jets. For the Jets, are you starting anyone other than Jamison Crowder?
Nope. Let's move on.
Woo! Bucks versus Packers. That's true, by the way. I think I would be remiss. I have Frank Gore 36th among running backs in half PPR and LaMichael Pirine 49th. Why don't you give a number on it because people are going to yell at us and be like, well, I'm desperate. I need something.
Yeah, I have Frank Gore at 31, and I have LaMichael Pirine in the basement. I'm not trusting him yet.
Yeah, I do think that LaMichael Pirine is a guy who you might want to pick up and stash because if the Jets have any brands, which there is no evidence of, that they would at least say, let me see what Pirine does going forward in the future. So you have him 31st. I'm 36th. There is a universe where you can start Frank Gore, and I live in that universe in one league, and I'm very upset about it. Bucks versus Packers. Assuming that both Chris Godwin and or Mike Evans plays, you're just starting them, right? No concerns.
Yeah, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Assuming that both of them play, I think that you look at them as low-end wide receiver 2s. Godwin certainly can finish higher than that, but he comes with the injury concerns. I'm not ready to just plug him in and say, like, all right, here we go, locked and loaded wide receiver 1. So that's just where you need to be viewing him, but he certainly can finish higher than that. Mike Evans is a low-end wide receiver 2 with Godwin back in the lineup. Not going to see as many targets, but always can find that 2-yard touchdown. So I think that he is he's someone who he's probably in that range in my rankings. I can pull that up.
No, yeah, I have Evans higher because I realize that you've got this weird thing going on where he's just basically the Jordan Howard sometimes of wide receivers at this point. But I do think that this is going to be a shootout given that, the Packers offense is really humming. You've got Devonta Adams coming back and you've got injuries on the Bucks defense, even though they have been strong. So I do think the Bucks are going to need points. I do think that they're going to be angry. So I'm fine to start Evans more like a wide receiver 1 in this matchup. Godwin, I right now have ranked 16th because I do think that it's unlikely that he's just going to be out there playing 100% of the snaps, at full speed, ready to go. But I do think, given that he's gotten in some limited practices so far, he is going to be able to go. And so I would roll him out there, but again, more like a wide receiver 2 right now. You got your actual numbers pulled up now?
So I haven't accounted for Godwin, and I balance out my rankings with ECR. So ECR was pretty low on him coming into when I did my last ranking sweep. So he's at 33 right now. He'll move up. Mike Evans is at 20. He'll move down just a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I have basically the way I've projected it is, again, Godwin playing, not playing the full complement of snaps. So I've got one right now at 16, but I am higher on Evans, and I do think it's going to be a good day. But Ronald Jones, I assume, like me, you're feeling pretty good about right now.
Yeah, I mean, looking fantastic on the ground, but he's still a liability as a receiver out of the backfield. So I think even though he came up with that weird, catch in the Bears game on Thursday night.
Should have been a touchdown.
He was convinced that he dropped it. He believed the refs when they said that he didn't catch it.
That's right.
So I think Ronald Jones, you just have to plug him in especially this week as a mid-range RB2, and you deal with the potential range of outcomes. I don't know if Fournette's playing in this game. I haven't heard anything. I think he's been limited in practice, so we could see him come back in and start to take away touches. But I mean, we saw Keyshawn Vaughn start to be involved in this receiving core, as a receiver out of the backfield. So that's just something that's concerning moving forward.
Considering Fournette was active last week, even though it was only in an emergency fashion, that does make me think that 10 days later that, he's returned to practice again in limited fashion. He might get in, which would put a little bit of a damper on Ronald Jones. And again, as we say often, that does put out the possibility of anything goes wrong with Jones. There's always a possibility that he's going to be benched for at least, a series or more, and then Fournette has the chance to run with it. All that said, right now, Jones is 19th in my running back rankings, so I am good to go with him. Let's go to the Packers. You're starting Aaron Rodgers. You're starting Aaron Jones. You're starting Davante Adams. Starter sit Robert Tonyan. You're good to go with them?
Yeah, I mean, fire him up. Roll with the possibility that they need him in this offense. And so I have Tonyan at 6 right now. I know that, I was the one saying, I'm not crazy about picking up Tonyan. That was before we saw the tight end landscape just be like this gross desert wasteland. So, now Tonyan just gets pushed up based on necessity.
Yeah, I've got him 7, so we're in the same range. How about MVS here? I mean, Tags mentioned him as somebody to pick up. You and I were sort of like, what? So where do you have him ranked this week?
Yeah, I picked up MVS on waivers this week in one league, and I felt gross doing it. But I've got to play him because some other options. So flex play at best, you're just hoping that he finds the end zone.
Yeah, I'm 47th right now. I would like, if our producers are listening, can we get into the FantasyPros shop a shirt that said, "I felt gross doing it," with a picture of Yates, because that's basically how he feels about his rankings. Rams visiting the 49ers. You're starting both Rams receivers here. Are you starting any Rams running back?
I'm starting Darrell Henderson. I'm still willing to buy into the fact that, this Rams offense is running the ball quite a bit. They're a run-heavy team at this point. So I think that he is the clear back. Cam Akers will obviously see touches. Malcolm Brown is fading into oblivion. So I think that Darrell Henderson will see enough work to return low-end RB2 value.
Yeah, that's basically where I am. I have him 25th. I don't like it, but I would roll him out there for sure. How about Tyler Higbee? Are we moving on?
Just move on. Yep.
That's how I am too. I mean, I have him 14th. So again, he is in this sort of scenario where I might be able to roll with it. But Jimmy Graham, Noah Fant, Dalton Schultz, Evan Ingram, Eric Ebron, I am starting them all over Tyler Higbee.
I have Tyler Higbee one spot above Logan Thomas in my tight end rankings, if that tells you anything, Dan.
Well, that's hard because Logan Thomas might be the best tight end ever. So, no good. Okay. 49ers, Raheem Mostert, a great start here. George Kittle, of course. Are you starting anybody else on the 49ers in this game?
Deebo Samuel as a flex play, a high-end flex play for me, but you're just hoping that Jimmy Garoppolo bounces back from whatever it was that he put on the field last week. And then Brandon Ayuk is a low-end flex play.
Okay, I mean, I have them ranked right around each other. I have Ayuk right now 42nd and Deebo 46th. Sounds like you would play Deebo over Ayuk.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, but not by a significant amount?
Correct.
Okay, so we're in the same range there. They're both flex plays. You can get away with starting them if you absolutely have to, but we're not jonesing to do it. Chiefs at the Bills. You're starting all the obvious names here for the Chiefs. And the Bills, frankly, but the Chiefs for sure. Are you starting Mecole Hardman without Sammy Watkins?
I've got Mecole Hardman at 35 right now in my rankings, so fire him up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Watkins is, I don't think he's going on IR. But
he's not going on IR, but he's not playing this game.
Yeah, he's definitely not playing this game. This is certainly a matchup where, you want to see where it goes. It's really been about the snaps with Hardman, and like Tyreek Hill, he's basically a red zone threat. Anytime he gets on the field, I haven't. Where'd you say you had him, Yates?
35.
Yeah, I'm 30th, so I'm even a little more excited about it than you are. I mean, the Bills should get healthier in the secondary here, but I don't really think it matters with an angry Chiefs team. For the Bills, are you starting Devin Singletary if Zach Moss plays?
I have Singletary at, 26? So I think based on necessity, this week you have to, but yet if you have other options, I'd be looking to sit him.
What about if Zach Moss does not play?
Even with that, he's not going to move up much in my rankings. Like he
TJ Yeldon's getting a plenty of work anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, Yeldon, the majority of his work came in like when that game was completely.
Well, the majority of his production came when the game was sort of out there. But he was out there. He was spelling Singletary, more than I thought even early in the game, right?
Yeah, Singletary was also just terribly inefficient that entire game. So I just, if Zach Moss sits, I might move Singletary above Adrian Peterson, but that's probably about as far as I'll go.
Yeah, right now I have Singletary 23rd. It's hard to get away from any running back basically this week with the assumption that Moss plays. But it is, I think if there's a guy who could move significantly in my rankings from now until after I do my sweep on Saturday night, it is Singletary because I really need to see how things are going to shake out. Are you starting John Brown if he plays?
Yeah. If John Brown is active and he gets into practice today, then I think that you can, or, Saturday since they have the Monday night game, then I think you can roll out John Brown. I like him. This offense needed him. They needed him last game. And so I think that in this matchup where Buffalo's going to have to throw the ball, then, fire up John Brown as a high-end wide receiver 3.
How about Cole Beasley if John Brown does not play and Cole Beasley if John Brown does play?
Either way, flex play in full PPR leagues.
Yeah, only in full PPR really for me. Right now he's ranked 53rd in half PPR. He does produce, so that might be a little unfair, and I will take a closer look. But, just not somebody who I'm really out there. But again, we've got bye weeks. We may have more cancellations right now. So do what you got to do. Final game, Cardinals visiting Dallas. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are guaranteed. And again, where did you say you have Kenyon Drake ranked this week?
Drake is at 22 right now.
Okay, yeah, he's at 21 for me. So again, people keep saying I don't want to. I mean, look at the guys we've been talking about this week. Like Kenyon Drake, just the guy who gets out there. What about Chase Edmonds though? I mean, he's getting high single-digit touches per week. He's getting a little more involved. There's talk they want to get him more involved. Where do you have him ranked this week?
That's the thing with Chase Edmonds. Like everyone early on this week, he was at like 23 in ECR. And I was just like, that is so freaking high for a guy who's only seen like 9 touches a game. Yeah, he's finding the end zone. Yeah, he looks great. But yet they're still rolling out Kenyon Drake as the main guy. Kenyon Drake has not seen a dip in his snaps at all. Chase Edmonds is starting to see a slight uptick, but it's not enough for me to feel confident. So this week I have Chase Edmonds at 30. He would be much lower on a normal week, though.
Yeah, and again, the defense is terrible, and you are essentially, with running backs, we're just in a wasteland right now once you get basically outside of RB2 territory. So I would feel okay if you have to start Edmonds doing it. And we talked about it on the waiver wire show, you like Christian Kirk this week, right?
I do. I have him as a low-end wide receiver 3 this week. I think in this matchup, you can fire him up. He's starting to see an uptick in targets. He's starting to become involved in this offense. The concern that we had, and Adam mentioned it, I keep going back to the start-sit show, but he mentioned the only way that Christian Kirk does not perform in this matchup is if DeAndre Hopkins sees 30 targets in this game and catches all 30 of them. It's a very good possibility.
Yeah, no, that is true. That is, we talked about on the waiver wire, one of the reasons why I wasn't quite as high on picking up Kirk is because I figured you'd probably have him ranked a little higher than I would this week, just because, again, last week he saw 7 targets, but that was the first time he had more than 5. So I am right now at 41st. That's probably going to move a little bit. That's a guy you can start as a flex play if you have to, but he's probably going to move a little bit as I redo my rankings for this weekend. For Dallas, you're, of course, starting Zeke. Is there a big impact right now on how you feel about the wide receivers this week, given that it's Andy Dalton and not Dak Prescott, or are you starting all 3 of them or benching Gallup, or how you look at this?
Yeah. So Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, I'm still fine firing up as high-end wide receiver 2s. Cooper, maybe even a low-end wide receiver 1. Gallup is the one that I'm a little concerned about, and in my projections, he fell a little bit with Dalton stepping in. So I'm not super excited about Gallup. He's kind of in the same territory now as a Will Fuller, Marquise Brown, these guys who can take a deep pass and take it to the house, but otherwise they have a very low floor. There's a wide range of outcomes on these guys week in and week out. So I think that with Gallup, that's just kind of one of those guys that if you're forced into playing him, then you're hoping that he finds the end zone. Otherwise, I probably would be looking to sit him if I can. Michael
Gallup or T. Higgins?
I'll go T. Higgins.
Michael Gallup or Jarvis Landry?
Assuming that he's healthy, I'll go Jarvis Landry.
Okay. So my guess is I don't know what your actual number is on Gallup. I am 33rd. So he is still somebody who I'm willing to roll out as a low-end wide receiver 3. And again, their offensive line is banged up, and I think that really hurts Gallup because I think he's got to stretch the field. But you did see at the very end of the game, he's so talented, those 2 catches he had with Dalton to basically win that game last week.
Yep.
He's really talented, and I hope they get him more involved. And again, Dalton Schultz, still basically a borderline starter for you?
Just, based on the landscape. I'm not excited about playing him, but you might be forced into.
He's in my top 12 as well. All right, that is it. A reminder that we post our rankings to our Twitter profiles. We all do rankings articles. You can view them there. You can also check out our start-sit shows. I do mine on Instagram at the Fantasy Pros account, at Fantasy Pros. Remember, if you subscribe, enter our contest to try to win our monster giveaway. That's from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tags us his on youtube.com/fantasypros from 11 to 12. Yates finishes us off from 12 to 1 on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasypros, answering all your start-sit questions. Until then, Tags and I will speak to you on Sunday night during our recap show. I'll talk to you then.
Thank you for tuning into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments section below. And while you're there, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.